Hi everybody, welcome back to Kids in the 90's. Today is Wednesday, dropping on Wednesdays weekly, like I told you before. So here we go, the first weekly Wednesday episode of Kids in the 90's. I've got a friend of mine here. His name is Jason. I've known Jason for about 10 years, so I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself to you.
All right, well, I'm Jason, and I came over here today because we're talking about 90's music, and 90's music is always on my psyche. And I hadn't told Jeremy this, but I had to work today because I work at the Capitol, and the governor was setting up for Stay of the State today. And Jeremy, here's a picture where I was having to set up our chamber cameras in preparation for it, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And so he's giving a speech, and I'm prepping the computer systems and the cameras. And when he's done, he's talking to his staff, and he gets up and he walks right by me, and I go, "Governor Stitt, did you get tickets to Pearl Jam yet?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Pearl Jam who?"
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, "Governor, they chose 10 cities in the United States to tour off their new album, and Oklahoma City's one of them." And so that broke my heart a little bit, but it's, 90's music's on my mind a lot. I kind of felt dumb after asking him that, but yeah, so I'm the guy, I guess, to get to talk about 90's music because I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. I think Jason's been to every Pearl Jam concert that's been around here. I always see him and a couple other friends of ours at a Pearl Jam just blasting it all over. "I'm going to Pearl Jam. What about y'all? Oh no. Ha ha ha." But Jason's from the West Coast. What year were you born, Jason?
I was born in 1978, so I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater.
Woo!
Yeah.
78. So he's got about a 6-7 year gap on me, depending on month. But I will tell you this, Jason does know a lot about 90's music. So we're actually going to bring it down to what memories or feelings kind of we had about a few different songs and talk about those later on in the podcast season. There's probably going to be where we single out a certain music category, whether it's hip hop, alternative, pop and R&B, just different kind of stuff later. But right now we're just going to talk about kind of different genres and the feelings that we had based on certain music when we were growing up. And like I said, Jason would have been a little bit older, so he'd have probably a little bit more freedom with what he was getting into, whereas me, I was a little bit younger, so basically I was whatever was popular was whatever I was hearing, whether it was on the radio or a soundtrack to a movie. Those are or an influence from a family member. Those are kind of where my limitations were. So Jason, why don't you just start us off and we'll kind of let it flow.
Well, I was talking to Jeremy about how a lot of times music is directly tied to memory, and anytime I hear particular songs from the 90's, it instantly garners a memory from that time. And anytime that this particular song hits the radio, and I'll give you a little hint, Jeremy, you'll get it. Do you know what that is?
I don't know, based on your impersonation. Okay. Tell me, I'll
Digital Underground. Humpty Dance,
yep.
Right?
I do the Humpty Dance.
Yeah. All right, stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to. I look funny, but you don't make money. Okay, so every single time I hear that song, I think back to 1991 when I was in 7th grade, and that song came on at this dance. So in California, K through 6. Is elementary school, and then 7-8 is junior high. And it was the first dance that I ever went to, where there's girls. And this song hits, and the whole auditorium just goes nuts. And kids would lay down, and people would like jump over them. You know how they crisscross like in the movie House Party?
Yep.
So this song hits, and everyone's going wild. And my mom was actually a chaperone, and she helped set up the dance, and she took my Nintendo and set up a side room for kids that didn't want to dance to play Nintendo. And I was super nervous about that because like these kids are going to wreck my system. And then there was this girl. Her last name was La Raza, and it was like that song. Remember that 90's song? "This is for La Raza." And it had like that saxophone song. Anyway, she identified as like a rapper gangster girl. A lot of that stuff that was going on in Southern California when I was growing up, like that out of LA and Compton, when you had Straight Outta Compton and you had NWA and Ice-T. Well, some of that came up to Northern California. We had Tupac out of the Bay Area. And so at this dance, this girl comes up to me and she's like, "You're gonna dance with me." And everyone in the school was scared of her. She got in
I think you
fights.
told me this story before.
She got in fights with other girls. She's just the kind of girl that can come up to you and ask you for your lunch money, and you'd have to give it to her. And so she comes up to me, she's like, "You're dancing with me." And I was like, oh my gosh. So it was the first time I ever danced with a girl. And she grabs me really tight and squeezes both of my posterior region, both. And you know, a lot of times when you go to dances and like there's the chaperones and they'll come up and say, "Leave room for Jesus."
Oh.
That lady did not come to my aid. Nobody helped me on that. So I'm sitting there petrified. This girl is doing things that I don't want her to do. Song ends, I walk away. I don't think I went to an 8th grade dance. But every single time that the Digital Underground Humpty Dance comes on, I remember that specific dance from the 7th grade.
Your posterior clenches?
Yeah, it was, you know, that was a scary and frightening thing. Because I wasn't into girls, you know, I wanted to go and dance with my friends. And when that happened, it was a little scary.
The funny thing is, I actually have a song from the 6th grade dance also, but it's going to be quite different than the song you had. So this was probably up there with the #1 song at that time. Once I say it, you're going to know it's actually on a movie soundtrack, like I said, but I actually had this guy's cassette tape. And most of these songs on this list were on cassette tape for me. There's very few CDs, and I'll actually talk about my first CD that I got in a little bit with the song. But Gangstas Paradise by Coolio. That was a huge song in 1995. And we had our 6th grade dance. It was at the end of the year, and that song came on. I think I was trying to think of what was before that, and I couldn't. It's kind of there, but I can't figure it out. But then this comes on, and it just pops off. And everybody in the 6th grade loved that song. We were going wild. I mean, you see kids on ADHD. I was one of them, bouncing off the walls, a white rap kid, just letting it flow. Every word of that song, still know every word every time it comes on.
It's a great song.
I was actually, on my list, I was checking off, I was listening to the 90's Pandora earlier, and several of the songs were on there. The only ones that weren't, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but Gangstas Paradise was one song that came on earlier, and I was spitting it out there on the trailer steps, waiting for customers to come in, and people were telling me to shut up because I was hyped up on a low carb monster. So, but yeah, it was the same kind of feeling. I was bouncing up, jumping around, going to everybody I knew, like just spitting rhymes at them, and they were like doing it right back, and it was like normal. It was like all these Oklahoma white kids singing Coolio in the middle of this, and the teachers were like, "What's going on?" So
that was from Dangerous Minds.
Dangerous
and
Minds.
Michelle Pfeiffer made
Michelle
the move
Pfeiffer.
where you sat on the chair backwards. That was the cool move. I remember that music video.
Pop culture right there. The people started doing that. So that was Gangstas Paradise. I'm just gonna go to what I was saying was my first CD purchase. Let's just hop there. So this was a big one for me because I had seen the music video. And music videos back then was constantly played on MTV before it was all reality television. Real World and stuff was coming out, but there was still a lot of music videos. And when this music video came out, to me it was second to Thriller. Thriller is still probably the best music video I've seen. Yeah, it's a little bit outdated, but for what it was and what it still is amazing. But Mo Money, Mo Problems came out by Notorious B.I.G. with Puffy and Mace. I was a big Mace fan. And they had the Tiger Woods kind of set up. So it started out, and Puffy Woods, or whatever they call them, and he's putting, and Mace comes up as the reporter. Well, what are you going to do next? You know, and it was just like, dang, because I love Tiger Woods back then. Tiger Woods, that's a whole episode you could do there. I mean, you probably throw him with other sports figures that were big in the 90's. But he was a pinnacle of golf at that point for young kids growing up. So this music video comes out, Puffy Woods puts it, and then it goes straight into the song from there. So you have the intro, the song. Life After Death and Harlem World were the two CDs I bought first whenever I was actually going to live with my mom in Virginia. And I got them at the Galleria Mall in Dallas. That's kind of was on the route there that we were heading. And so I think I still have both those CDs from 97 was when they came out. And I gotta confess this, I like the Mace Harlem World CD better. I like more tracks on that. Mace was more my style, but Biggie still had several hot hits on that. Was that a big one for you over in West Coast? I know it's the opposite coast for music, so I don't know if that was big in Sacramento or not.
Well, Tupac was sort of the king there, and you know, being from y'all from Oklahoma, you kind of miss that East Coast West Coast rap war.
well, that's a good thing about Oklahoma. You can pick what you want. Like, we had no basketball team, and so that'll come up later.
So it was like tribal.
Just pick what you want.
But I mean, I was into that. I was more into like the bubblegum rap for a while, and then when alternative hit, that was like huge for me. So I wasn't too much into Biggie or Tupac. Now, a little fun fact that Tupac was actually in Digital Underground, on the song I mentioned earlier. He started off in that band and then just blew up. I really, when it comes to 90s music, it's almost exclusively alternative for me and grunge rock. But I do like Julio, and I did like a lot of those hits that Tupac and Biggie had. But another memory that I had tied specifically to a song, when this song came out, Smashing Pumpkins Today, off the album Siamese Dream, I went on my first date with a girl. It was really exciting. You know, we held hands, went to a movie, my jokes hit, like we hit it off. It was a fantastic night. It was like when you first go on your first date and it goes well, and you kind of get like those butterfly feelings. So when I went home that night, I played that song continuously over and over again. Today is the greatest. And I wore that CD out, as well as many of the other songs on Siamese Dream. So when that song comes on, like 90's on 9, and I'm driving, I'll instantly think about that date that I went to. Now, consequently, when we started to date, back then, you had a song that you had as a couple. And our song was Pearl Jam's Black, which is about a breakup. So foreshadowing, we broke up. I mean, you probably shouldn't have a breakup song be your song.
Yeah, there you
go. It kind of spells out doom there. So when I hear that Siamese Dream Today by the Smashing Pumpkins, I think about that freshman, sophomore year of high school. And then when I think about Pearl Jam's Black, I think about that same girl and I dancing at a dance and then later breaking up. So, every time those songs come on, I think about my freshman and sophomore year in high school, and that was 93, 94. Yeah.
What do you think about, you said alternative grunge, what do you think about Alice in Chains? I got 2 songs on there from Alice in Chains, and the thing, I got Man in the Box and Rooster. I remember them real strong. And that band right there, amongst others, reminds me of my dad. So my dad was big into alternative rock, big into classic rock also, and so I've gotten a lot of knowledge about those topics from listening to this music and then diving deeper. And so Alice in Chains, those 2 songs were the biggest ones for me. Another one that's not in the 90s is Voodoo Child by Stevie Ray Vaughan. The opening to that, I always remember, it's a
written by Jimi Hendrix originally.
It is originally, but that part right there, always, I don't know why my dad would say I called it the monkey song, and I don't know if it's because it reminded me of like mating season monkeys, or just I don't know, but I would always call that the monkey song, and I want to hear the monkey song. And so that, amongst all the other Alice in Chains or Nirvana, all that alternative stuff, gives me that kind of good feel of when I was young and riding with my dad in old school cars and stuff,
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Alice in Chains, and I think Dirt was top 10 album of the 90s. And I would put Alice in Chains, as far as like that big grunge alternative explosion that came out of like Seattle and parts of Southern California, I would put Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam up there as probably the top bands of the 90s when it comes to alternative. And yeah, I'm the same way. Like when I hear Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, or Pearl Jam, I just think back to just getting my license and being able to put, at the time it was a tape player, which kids today don't understand how much work mixtapes were.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, like if you liked a girl and you gave her a mixtape and then she just kind of took it with like, okay, thanks. You're like, I spent like 2 hours real time putting that together. That was sort of like the 90s version of a flower. Here's a mixtape. Yeah. So I have good memories of a lot of that stuff too.
So all those songs I actually heard on 90s radio today while I was at work. Just kind of getting pumped up for recording another episode tonight. I got one that I know is not on your list. It's probably on nobody's 90s list.
Okay, well, I got
I mean, half the people I talk to don't even talk about it. It was Shaquille O'Neal. He had Shaq Diesel. I was mad. Or being from Oklahoma, you had no real NBA team. You had the cavalry. I can't even remember how you would say it. But that was the Oklahoma team, and it was not a professional team. So you would look out to other states and be like, oh, I like this player. This team's awesome. And like I talked about with my Barkley story, I went through a Barkley phase, shaved the head. You probably experienced Noogieville, maybe. It's horrible. So at this point, I was a huge Penny fan. And you had Penny, Horace Grant, you had Shaq, you had all these people in Orlando. And so I got the Shaq Diesel tape. And I listened to that thing forward and back so many times. The song I'm going to pull up is one of the stupidest songs on there, but it was Shoot, Pass, Slam. And Shaq would go, do you want me to shoot it? No. Do you want me to pass it? No. Do you want me to slam? Slam. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way. And that song was just so stupid, but that was the best song on that tape. And I'd go through the whole thing on the tape just so I could get back to that song. And so I had that tape, and I was listening to it back and forth on the little handheld Walkman with the headphones on the way to the first trip to Six Flags over Texas, which was not a big deal. But 93, I was about 8. It could have been 8 or 9. First time going with my grandma, my sister, down to Arlington, Texas, to Six Flags, which, you know, as a kid is fun. I just remember having a lot of fun. Another fun fact is Cool Ranch Doritos came out because they were giving them out. They were actually Cooler Ranch, and they were giving them out at the gate so you could test them out. And so Shoot Past Slam, I guarantee, is probably not on anybody else's memory chain for 90 songs. It did not come on my 90s playlist. I figured it wouldn't because it wasn't a big hit. Everybody want to talk about Shaq Diesel was bringing up Shaq Fu, the Shaolin Master or whatever for Sega, and I was like, that's not the same. I'm talking about a song here.
Shaq Fu.
Yeah, so he made another album. Kobe made an album. A lot of ballers and stuff make albums, but that song right there I thought was pretty good, but I was a kid. So, I mean, my opinion probably wasn't that great.
That's hilarious. So, I have a song that's embarrassing. It's probably on no one's list as well. And it's a song by Expose. I'll Never Get Over You, Getting Over Me. Do you remember that song? I'll never get over you, getting over me. It was like this ballad. And after I broke up with the girl who's
Black?
Yeah, whose song was Black, so it was foreshadowing. We broke up, and I was tore up. And I made a breakup CD. And I drove around Sacramento, like, just bawling, like, crying. It was the first time I had my heart broken. And I'm listening to this Expose song. If you YouTube it, it's such a cheeseball song. I mean, it's a good song. Mm-hmm. But I just stacked this playlist full of really sad songs. Mm-hmm. And then as a teen, when you break up with a girl, you just identify with other artists that have gone through the same thing. And so I was just crying like a baby driving around the city. Looking back at it now, it's a super hilarious memory for me. But Expose, every time I hear that song on 90s on 9 or it just comes on through a playlist, I'll think about that time when I made that mix CD, driving around feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. Last one I'm going to bring up, I hesitated to even put it on the list. And I'll tell you why. It did not come up on the 90s playlist today on Pandora. It's I Believe I Can Fly. And I've watched Surviving R. Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody had this as a graduation song. This is my 6th grade graduation song. It's why it's on the list. It's also on the Space Jam soundtrack, which is why it's on the list. I mean, that was for that year, that was my favorite movie. It's still in probably my top 100 movies, even though it's cheesy. But it was cool for the time. It was actually really cool for the time. But I Believe I Can Fly was that song that everybody had for the graduation. Gave you that next level push. His most successful song probably ever.
Yeah, I think it was.
And listening to this documentary or Netflix series definitely is eye-opening. I posted on my Facebook the other day just saying how, I can't believe, all this was going on. And, it is opinion, but there's a lot of coincidences. There's a lot, the Aaliyah marriage thing with a date changed on the marriage certificate. That's kind of a big red flag for me, when I listened to that.
Were they married?
They were married.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah. So, if you watch it, she married him. They weren't married long, a month or two. She said that she was 18 when she was really like 15, and he was 27. So that right there was a little eye-opening in the whole thing, and to know that this was in public news and MTV news and stuff, very out there, and this was still our graduation song for 6th grade, a little worried me that he was, getting these accusations about young girls, and this is our graduation song for 6th grade, which is about the same age as some of these girls. So I was hesitant to put it on there, but I did because of that. It's a memory tied to a song. And it's going to be the same one that many of you had because it was your graduation song. Whether it was going from elementary to middle school, or middle school to high school, or even a lot of high schools, and maybe even colleges. This was the number one song for graduations at that time. It was the number one charts for weeks.
It was big. Yeah.
It was a ginormous song. Any others that you want to throw out before we kind of start wrapping this up?
One song that I just got absolutely tired of in the 90s. It's a good song, but I just started working at this Chinese place called Ah Chop Chop. And it was a place kind of like Panda Express, but it was laced with MSG. And then when I have MSG, when I get MSG and I eat it, I get an instant nosebleed. So if I'm ever going to do a role where I'm a boxer and I need my nose to bleed,
just rub it on your nose.
Just load up on MSG. And my first day there, I had a meal and I got a nosebleed. I was like, I can't eat here anymore. But we had a sound system that would play music, and Tony Braxton's Breathe Again played like every hour on the hour, all day, every day for months and months and months. And so whenever I think about that song, I think about Ah Chop Chop and all the crazy things that happened there. This place should have been shut down. We used to store food on carts that had moss. And even as a teenager, I had standards. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I cleaned it. We used to have a guy named Wang who would cook over the wok with a long ash from his cigarette. This is like the 90s before, I guess, there were health codes. And I just think about him. He used to call me Michael Jason because one time I mopped the floor and I tried to moonwalk on it.
Uh-oh.
And so he just called me Michael Jason from then on out. But every time I hear that Tony Braxton song, Breathe Again, I'm just like, oh yeah, Ah Chop Chop. Yep. So it's really crazy how music can be tied so heavily to memory, and there's so many more that we could spend 2 hours just talking about songs that are tied to memory. It's pretty amazing.
And we'll probably have another chance. Like I said, we can always do more episodes about this topic, and even have people possibly write in and say what songs. We could talk about those too. '90s slang of the Sode. Jason's here, and this is one he wanted to do, being from the West Coast, and so The word is hella.
Hella, yeah. It's so geographical. You know, like you hear Boston, they say wicked. In Northern California, hella was used for everything. It's hella warm, it's hella cold. That movie was hella dumb. It was everywhere. And when I moved from California, I remember I was thinking, I'm going to put this in the rear view. And when I left, I buried it. I never said it again. I started to take up y'all a little bit when I moved here, but since I moved to Oklahoma, hella has not been part of my repertoire of words. I left that in Northern California.
Well, I will say, the only thing I've really heard is hella fresh until today, whenever one of my coworkers kept saying the word hella this, hella that. I go, dude, stop it. That's a 90s slang. That's what I'm talking about today. Quit saying that word. You're wearing it out, and I haven't even got to throw it on the podcast. He was like, you're saying? I go, yeah, I'm saying that today. That's actually the word. Here's the paper.
Yeah, it was prevalent in California. It was annoying how often people used it. And I used it too.
All right, it's time for the spoiler alert. I've got a double feature spoiler alert for you today. Horror films, a topic I generally like, so here we go. First one is Scream, the original 1996 movie about a bunch of high school kids in a small town. Some kids get the idea to put on some ghost masks and robes and go chase people and kill people. I'll tell you this, a lot of people die in the movie. Most of the main characters die in the movie. Sidney Prescott, the main character, will survive. The bad guys are Matthew Lillard, a.k.a. Shaggy from the new Scooby-Doos, and Skeet Ulrich. Not very big, but I do remember him from Chill Factor with Cuba Gooding Jr. It's been spoiled. Spoiler alert 2. Scream 2. 1997, so if you plan on double featuring it, I'm spoiling them both for you right now. Same thing, Sidney Prescott goes to college. It's actually a really good sequel. I really enjoyed Scream 2, possibly even better than Scream 1. That might have been because Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it. I'm not sure. Sarah Michelle Gellar was several of our 90s heartthrobs for the fellas. So she goes to college with all these people. Like I said, a lot of people die. A lot of her friends die. Few main characters survive. She will survive and go make a couple more movies. But this time, the bad guys are Timothy Olyphant, a.k.a. Justified, and the lady from Roseanne. I don't even remember her name. She's just the lady from Roseanne. So those have both been spoiled. Double feature spoils today. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad Jason could join and just have fun talking about different 90s music that he liked. Talking about the slang of the Sode and I do the Humpty Hump, I do the Humpty Hump. So again, I do have a Facebook, Twitter. Yeah, Twitter's hard to keep up with. Instagram, if you want to check that out. All Kids in the 90s, one word, Z on the kids. No apostrophe between the 0 and the S. So Kids in the 90s, check that out. We'll be back next Wednesday with another topic. Got to figure out who's going to be here, what they want to talk about. But like we've said over and over, there's a lot in that decade that we can talk about, reminisce on, and some stuff you don't want me to bring up, but we're going to bring it up anyways. So join us next time. Say bye to Jason.
Breathe again. Breathe again. It's going through my mind again. I'm thinking about All Chop Chop.
He's going to start playing Black in a minute. We got to cut this out before y'all.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again. See us then. Bye.